Blind black girl was asked to sing at academy, as a joke, but her voice left the room, speechless. The grand auditorium buzzed with anticipation, rows of polished seats filled with students, teachers, and parents from the prestigious Academy of Arts. But hidden beneath the chatter was something cruel, a prank designed to humiliate. At the center of it all was a blind black girl, led nervously to the stage. Whispers spread, some muffled laughs slipped through the crowd. They hadn't invited her to showcase her talent. They had invited her to be mocked. Yet, as she took a deep breath and opened her mouth, the entire room would soon realize their cruelest joke had become their greatest regret. Before we continue this story, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and like this video so we can bring you even more amazing stories like this one. The Academy of Arts was known for its shining chandeliers, marble halls, and students dressed in neatly pressed uniforms. It was an institution where privilege wasn't just seen, it was felt. For decades, the Academy had been a place where talent supposedly mattered more than wealth or background. Yet beneath the glossy surface, there was a truth few admitted. Not everyone was welcome equally. Amara was living proof of that. She was a young black girl with a quiet spirit and a gift that even she didn't fully understand. Born blind, she navigated the world by touch, sound, and instinct. She wasn't wealthy, nor was she from a powerful family. Her acceptance into the academy had been questioned by many, whispered judgments that perhaps her spot should have gone to someone else. Most days, she stayed invisible, blending into the shadows, moving silently through the halls with her cane and her carefully trained steps. But invisibility had its price. It gave others the illusion of power, permission to decide her worth for her. And so, when the annual Academy Showcase was announced, a night where the most promising students performed before faculty, families, and visiting scouts, Amara was not expected to be anywhere near the stage. She had not volunteered. She had not been asked. Yet somehow, her name appeared on the program. At first, she thought it was a mistake, but the stifled laughter, the knowing glances, and the cruel smirks around her told the truth. It was a setup. Amara was being thrown into the spotlight not to shine, but to be ridiculed. What no one knew was that the stage they prepared as her downfall would become the place where her hidden brilliance shattered every prejudice in the room. The night of the showcase arrived. The auditorium glittered with pride and anticipation. Parents filled the aisles in elegant attire, their children preparing to dazzle with polished routines, rehearsed monologues, and flawless piano recitals. But in the midst of perfection, Amara stood quietly backstage, gripping her cane and steadying her breath. She had no sheet music, no rehearsal slot, no instructions, because, of course, this wasn't about her talent. It was about humiliation. A group of wealthy students had conspired, slipping her name onto the program as comic relief. They whispered it would be hilarious to watch the blind girl stumble through a performance she never prepared for. As Amara waited, she overheard pieces of their cruelty, words like joke, embarrassment, and let's see her try. Each word cut deeper, confirming what she had suspected all along. In their eyes, she wasn't a peer, she was an outsider. Her name was called. The room quieted. Her footsteps echoed against the polished wood floor as she tapped her cane toward the center of the stage. From the audience came muffled laughter. To them, this was already the entertainment. She stood before the microphone, her hands trembling slightly. She could feel the weight of their stares, sharp and unforgiving. For a brief moment, fear gripped her chest. She thought about running, about walking off the stage before the cruelty could pierce any deeper. But something within her refused. Something stronger than fear whispered that this was her moment. Taking a deep breath, Amara let the silence stretch. Then she opened her mouth. Her voice poured out, rich, pure, and haunting. It was a voice that carried pain and resilience, hope and sorrow. The kind of voice that didn't just sing notes. It told stories. The melody filled every corner of the auditorium, wrapping around the audience like an embrace they hadn't asked for, but couldn't resist. The laughter stopped. The whispers faded. The only sound left was her voice, soaring higher, trembling with power, echoing with truth. As she sang, the very students who had orchestrated the prank sat frozen, their smirks wiped clean, their faces pale. Parents leaned forward in their seats. Teachers exchanged stunned glances. Even the scouts, who had come expecting polished performances from the privileged, found themselves clutching their notepads, mesmerized. It wasn't just a performance, it was a revelation. Amara's blindness no longer mattered, nor did her skin color, nor her background. In that moment, she was not the joke they had planned. She was the undeniable voice of the night. And when her final note hung in the air, fragile, yet unbreakable, the silence that followed was deafening. For a heartbeat, the auditorium was still. It was as if the entire room had forgotten how to breathe. Then, like a wave crashing against a shore, the silence shattered into thunderous applause. People leapt to their feet, clapping, cheering, some even wiping away tears. Amara stood motionless, gripping the microphone, unsure whether to bow, to smile, or to run. But the sound of the audience washed over her, a tide of validation she had never known. For the first time, she felt seen. The headmaster, who had reluctantly allowed her to stay at the academy, sat stunned. He had always considered her an exception to the rule, someone admitted out of pity rather than merit. Yet here she was, silencing an entire hall with nothing but her voice. The students who had mocked her the loudest sat with lowered heads, their laughter now replaced with shame. What they had meant for humiliation had turned into a stage for her brilliance. One of the scouts, a woman from a renowned conservatory, scribbled furiously in her notebook before leaning to whisper to the headmaster. Whatever words she spoke made his eyes widen, and for once, it wasn't disdain but disbelief, and perhaps even admiration. In that moment, Amara didn't just sing. She dismantled years of unspoken prejudice that had hung over those marble halls. She had shown them that talent, resilience, and spirit were not bound by privilege, wealth, or appearance. Her final bow was hesitant, but the roar of applause only grew louder. For Amara, the stage that was meant to humiliate her had become the very place she claimed her power. The days following the showcase were unlike anything Amara had ever known. The very halls that once echoed with cruel whispers now carried voices of admiration. Teachers who had barely acknowledged her before stopped to congratulate her. Students who had smirked in the shadows now stepped aside respectfully as she passed. But perhaps the greatest shift came from the scouts. The woman who had scribbled furiously during Amara's performance returned with news. She wanted Amara to audition for a scholarship at one of the most prestigious music conservatories in the country. What had been designed as a prank had opened a door Amara never thought possible. And yet, amid the sudden attention and opportunities, Amara carried with her a deeper truth. The applause was sweet, the recognition long overdue, but she knew the pain that had preceded it couldn't be erased. The same people who now celebrated her had once laughed at her. Their cheers did not absolve their cruelty. Still, she chose not to dwell on their malice. Instead, she poured her energy into her music, into nurturing the gift that had carried her through. For Amara, her blindness had never been a weakness. It had sharpened her ears, deepened her soul, and given her voice a resonance no sighted eye could measure. Years later, when her name became known beyond the academy, when her songs touched hearts across stages much larger than the one that tried to break her, people often asked about the night it all began. And Amara would simply smile and say, "What was meant as a joke gave me the chance to tell the world who I really am." Her story became more than just a performance. It became a reminder that cruelty cannot define a person's worth, that prejudice may try to silence, but talent has a way of breaking through. And as her voice continues to echo through time, one question remains for all of us. How many hidden voices have we ignored, dismissed, or laughed at? Voices that, if given the chance, could leave the world speechless.